The first question, who am I and what do I do? My name is Thor Harris and I live in, are we rolling?
Yeah.
My name is Thor Harris and I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm a native of Texas. And I play in a lot of bands. Swans, Bill Callahan, Amanda Palmer, Xiu Xiu, Thor Friends, Devendra Banhart. I guess I'm on a couple of his records. Angels of Light, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you've been touring a lot with your band, right?
Yeah.
So, and how is it? Has that somehow changed the way you see the world or how you live? What you've experienced
Thank you, dear.
during your tours? And what you've seen?
It certainly has. I've been to Russia and China and all over Eastern and Western Europe, and people everywhere are kind and gracious, and they all seem to want the same things.
Which are?
I don't know, safe, healthy place to live and to be, left alone by the cops and the government, and healthcare. People all want that.
You are primarily known as a musician, but you're using your platform and your visibility for all kinds of social causes as well.
Yeah.
So how do you see music in that sense? Like, are you consciously, intentionally using it as a tool, or just
Absolutely. Because people like that band Swans that I was in for many years, and I'm still in it. We're going to make a new record in late April. So there's my Swans plug. But yeah, once I got and I made this video about how to punch a Nazi, because this there's this famous video about this neo-Nazi Richard Spencer gets punched by an American Antifa guy, and everyone watched that video. So I made a sort of comedy video about proper etiquette for Nazi punching, and so I got tons more followers for that. Hi, if you're thinking of punching a Nazi or any other member of the Republican Party, don't do it. Peaceful protest is better. But if you have to do it, please get someone to film it. Also, hold your wrist straight like this, otherwise you could hurt your wrist. You want to keep your elbow loose and just launch your fist like a missile and punch through the face. You don't want to stop right at the face. You want to punch to an imaginary space behind the face. Thank you. So, with social media, we're all, as Amanda Palmer says, we are all the media. So, Nico Case is good about this too. She's a friend of mine, and we talk about political stuff because we're sort of news junkies, and when you're touring a lot, it kind of gives you more of an opportunity to read, because you're looking at your phone all day long as you sit in the van or in an airport. I keep up more with what's going on in the world when I'm on tour. But at home, I'm still a plumber and a carpenter.
And in your Twitter, you recently posted that meat must end.
Yeah, meat must end.
Yeah.
I kind of hate to be preachy or self-righteous, but I think we all know, at least certainly in America, where meat comes from. We do raise a lot of it in America, but a lot of it's raised in South America, where they have to cut down jungles to raise meat. Meat has this horrible carbon footprint, and if you believe in climate change, becoming vegetarian is even better than getting a hybrid or an electric car. Meat has a way more horrible carbon footprint than our transportation options. It's I became a vegetarian when I was a kid, and my reasons back then, my reasons just change over the years. They were health reasons because my dad died when I was 10. He was 47. I started to think about mortality at a real young age. And it just horrified me that people died. I was like, wow, I don't want to die. Now I actually do want to die. And that's a thing that will change as you guys age. Anyone listening to this, I was terrified of death when I was young. But as you get older, and my mom, I just lost my mom. She was almost 90, and she was my hero. She was a retired school teacher, and she seemed to get less and less afraid of dying as she got older. And somehow I used to be really obsessed with it and terrified of it, and that's going away as I get older. What else you got?
Yeah, what does being vegan mean to you then?
Here's another thing. As I mentioned, being vegetarian, vegan. One good reason to do it now is climate change. But honestly, I love animals so much. Like, I have 4 dogs and 8 cats, and every chance I get to help an animal, I'm absolutely honored to do it. So the thought of like murdering an animal for something to eat, I can understand why people did it hundreds of years ago, but we just don't have to anymore. There's plenty of great stuff to eat, and I'm 54 years old and still like strong as an ox, and I've been vegetarian forever. So food that doesn't require murder is preferable to me. I could never bring myself to kill an animal. I think I would just... we have options.
Yeah.
So,
especially in the places where we live, the cities or...
In cities, exactly. It takes so much less energy just to grow plants to feed us than to grow plants to feed the livestock, which then have to be slaughtered, lots of waste, and cow shit, and it's just a much cleaner, easier way to eat. And it's cheaper.
It is, and a lot of people think that it's not.
A lot of things that I was doing in my 20s because I was so poor, I do now because they're environmentally better. Like, I just don't buy a lot of stuff. Consumption and stuff has a cost to our planet. So there I go preaching again. But
where do you draw the line then between expressing your own opinion, which is based on your experience, your knowledge, and then like the preaching part starts at some point? We cannot be completely opinionless.
I am 54 years old and I do have opinions. I didn't when I was younger, and it felt, I remember it felt terrible not to have, not to have seen that much, not have my mind made up about much. It felt like the whole world was just such a wilderness, and it's easier now. It just makes the world easier to navigate.
Tying some of the issues that you touched upon recently, one of the questions I wanted to ask was about the Swans to be Kind, the album title, and the Thor Friends, the subversive power of kindness.
Yeah.
Is it just a coincidence that they both touch on kindness? And because you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I do talk about kindness a lot. A thing about me, and I'm not so good at putting this into words yet, but
you put it in your music.
My mom was just really kind person. She had opinions and she had, strong feelings and judgments about people and things, but she never wanted to hurt anyone. She wanted everyone to she was like a peacemaker. She always wanted people to feel okay. and I inherited that from her. Like I love that comedian Sacha Baron Cohen, Ali G, Borat, but I could never play those mean tricks on people. Like I just.
But you do something similar with this How to Punch a Nazi
Yeah.
video, for example.
Yeah.
It is kind of like
It's
mean and theatrical.
It is. It is. I mean, I'm not entirely nice. There is an impish side, but Michael and I both. He is not very good at people. He would Michael Gira. He would admit that too. He doesn't come off as being very like a nice guy, but he is such a good friend and such a generous boss. Whereas I come off as being a really nice guy in public.
That's what I said to Sandris after meeting you.
Yeah, and it's just my nature because my mom was like that. But I do believe like what we spread in the world, that's it. You know, after 80 or 100 years, we're gone. And what did we do here? Did we make some people feel welcome and happy and, you know, like leaving a trail of people feeling like they've made a connection with someone is a good legacy, I think. You know, when I was going, like, in 2012, I was going through this horrible depression, and I was telling my therapist, I said, I think I was saying something basically like, I just think I'm just going to die alone and afraid, and she said something like, have you ever had trouble making connections with people? And I was like, no, that's a good point. I've always had friends, and like I can, you know, show up in some awful town in West Texas and make a few friends, and you know, sorry, West Texas, you're not awful. East Texas. You know, I say a lot about, like, I can't wait till we humans just wipe ourselves out and let this world recover and, you know, start nurturing a few new species, because we're just such a horrible scourge to the planet. I mean, the more we expand, I just read this book called The Sixth Extinction, and the more we expand, the more things go extinct, and it's our fault, and we're changing the planet. So yes, I am in favor of human extinction, but on a one-to-one level, I really like people.
In a painless way, probably.
Yeah, I hope we go easy. Just die peacefully in a field somewhere.
Surrounded by friends.
Surrounded by friends and good stout beers.
Yeah. But well, you mentioned the topic of being afraid of death, so maybe that's something, this realization that as long as you are you can make connections with people and you are kind.
Yeah.
Is that somehow connected?
I think it is, yeah. Yeah, I think... Yes, and I think, like, when my mom was dying the last few years of life, was I really afraid of mom? I was afraid of a world with... She was, like, my best friend. We weren't really so much like mother and son. We just became super good friends. And yes, I couldn't imagine a world without her, because I had known her my whole life, and she represented kindness and love to me, as most of our mothers do, I think. But I didn't want her to suffer, you know, and that was my main fear of death, was fear of suffering and loneliness toward the end. It did, I remember when I was really young, just the idea of oblivion, the idea of I just wouldn't exist anymore was horrifying to me, and it isn't anymore. Like, I don't think there's anything so special about me. I mean, yes, I'm a nice guy, and I'm, in a weird way, good at music. But there, I mean, give me 100 years, and I'll do what I can to spread goodwill and good music. But I don't really deserve any more than that.
I had this super long question.
Oh, I like your questions. So
basically, it was also related to my relationship with Swans and Xiu Xiu. Like at the same time, I both love and fear them, and like in some sense, like sometimes it feels like no, I cannot take it at this time when I, like, for example, play the music on random. But at the same time,
it's not always
can
what
be
you want
super
to hear.
appealing. So basically, what I wanted to ask is that about this mix of creating an appeal for the listener, and at the same time being I don't know, horrifying.
yeah,
What came to my mind was a quote from Twin Peaks. Like, this is a place both wonderful and strange, and this is what I feel about Xiu Xiu and also the Swans. And I feel that in some sense, musicians, especially musicians, also of course movie makers and other artists, they have this super strong power to make people feel something, experience something. Of course, they cannot go directly in other people's minds, but they have a lot of force in this. And do you feel also it as a responsibility on your shoulders? Or?
yeah.
You cannot be completely responsible for everybody, like at the end, to the end, but
I do, and being a part of Swans every single night, it took a toll. It takes a toll on us because it is beautiful. It's a beautiful sound experience, but it's also horrifying and very violent. It was a violent show to play. I mean, I had to really be in shape to play it, and it's 3 hours long, and it's so incredibly
both
loud,
physically and mentally as well.
Yeah. But it really appeals to me. I do listen to a lot of kind of beautiful music and some horrifying music too, and some of it is a little bit of both. And I love David Lynch because he's funny and terrifying. Yeah, so I am drawn to that. A lot of scary art and music. And I think whenever people make art that doesn't even acknowledge the real horror of our lives, the real horrors that are necessarily part of our lives, part of everyone's life that I know, then it doesn't feel authentic to me. Not everyone who makes art has to have depression, but it actually really helps if you do. And so, yeah, I think that the struggle, the despair, I think that most of the art that I really love, and it's like Swans, Xiu Xiu, David Lynch, Arvo Pärt, or Arvo Pärt, Death Grips, yeah. Blackie is this amazing, scary guy, rapper dude from Houston that I love. A lot of it is beautiful and fun, or even funny, but acknowledges how painful and disappointing life can be. After making Swans music live for like 5.5 years, I put together this group, Thor Friends, and for the most part, that music is like a really beautiful, soft, sort of environment that's more inviting. I mean, there is creepy stuff about it, and it certainly acknowledges it acknowledges depression and sadness, but it's much more gentle than Swans.
When we are in the both states, like constantly, we can't be in just one, like just the beautiful part of life without the horror side of it. And also, I feel like personally, we create the strongest connections or relationships with people when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and go to that scary part inside ourselves.
Yeah, a thing happened. I made this video for the mental health channel, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And it was just me. All I did is hang out in my house for 2 days and talk to this camera crew about depression. And then they edited it into this 7-minute video. And like quickly it started bouncing around on all the music blogs. And people all over the world were, and I was on tour with Swans at the time, so I was all in a different country every day, and people were telling me that it meant something to them, and that they thought it was brave. Well, it doesn't feel to me that brave talking about it. It was horrific not talking about it for the first few years that I knew I had depression. And it's so much more helpful just to talk about it to other people. And I kind of feel like anyone who would like judge me for having depression, I don't need anything from them. I don't need any friendship from them. No one who thinks I'm less of a awesome human because I have depression is worth a shit to me anyway. And so many of my heroes have had depression. Kurt Cobain, Abraham Lincoln, the list goes on. So it doesn't feel scary for me to talk about depression, but I do realize that to a lot of people it is scary, and I don't, I try to never out anybody. People have their own comfort levels with talking about mental illness.
And have you had any feedback after that? Like direct feedback from people?
So much. Just tons. People all over the world would walk up to me and say, that video that you made really meant something to me. Oftentimes in countries where they don't really talk about depression. Or maybe men don't talk about depression. So yeah, I've had so much feedback for that video, and I didn't do, all I did is talk. It was really made by those people who run the mental health channel.
You're very socially active, and you're also a handyman, and you do crafts, music, art, and reading your interviews, it feels like it creates a whole, like a picture for me, at least in my head. It makes total sense that of course it is like that, but how do you see it? Is it connected, or?
Are you a real person?
I'm a real person, yeah, and music has allowed me to stay connected with so many people all over the world. Whereas if I was just a furniture maker or just a plumber or just a carpenter, I would still be, he's that really friendly carpenter that's, nice to everyone. Well, I would be that guy, yeah. But the wonderful thing about music is that it has forced me to interact with so many people. And honestly, like I said at the beginning of this interview, people all over the world, especially people who are passionate about music, are really awesome. It's just our governments that are terrible. And I'm not sure why or how it got like this. But when I went to Russia, I can't stand their government, of course. They're, I think Vladimir Putin is basically trying to rebuild the Soviet Union in his own creepy way. I think the American government lies to the people, straight face, and I think they have long before Trump. They're the worst people in the world. But when you meet people on the ground, most of them are really pretty decent. Like this sort of ties into what I was saying earlier. Where I'm from, like they largely vote Republican. They vote for these awful politicians, but the people are really, thank you so much. The people are really pretty good there and kind, and I grew up with like tons of queers, and they were fine. They were part of our community. People with community apparently are the happiest people in the world, and I can feel that now that I'm older. I live in a neighborhood that's all different colors of people. It's like what you would picture America should be. All different colors of people, all different economic levels, and we all know each other. Like several of my dear friends are decades older than me and black, and it's just such a wonderful little microcosm right inside Austin, which is sadly a really segregated city. Yeah, community is the best thing you can cultivate in a life. What I hoped that we would be doing by now is like addressing problems like climate change and grown-up stuff, instead of like repeating the civil rights chapter for the 100th time. But no such luck.
What would your perfect future look like for the planet?
Oh man, there's too many of us, and I don't want us to die horrible deaths, but there need to be fewer humans. I mean, if there were half as many of us, we wouldn't have, like, so many of our problems are because there's just so many of us. Many of our problems are also because we're assholes and horrible to each other, but I don't know. I mean, the world is a better place in some ways than it was 1,000 years ago, but I think the population explosion, along with this weather catastrophe that we've started, are pretty daunting. So it's hard for me to say what a perfect future looks like, because I think it involves a lot of death. A perfect future,
to get there,
we all die off, and the planet makes a lot of nice, fuzzy, happy, new little creatures. They'll probably be evolved from rats, since we've spread rats all over the world, and there'll be a lot of algae, and there won't be a lot of coral, and the oceans are real acidic, so anyway, I'm sorry. I know that this planet will recover from us. It's recovered from worse.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
really
so nice to meet you both. And the questions were great. I was really excited. I was like, oh, good. I don't have to talk about music that much. We can talk about because I always end up like, oh, you want to talk about drums? Well, let's talk about climate change. It's always like.
Yeah.
Like, I can talk about music if you want, but I'd rather talk about everything.